Hello, good morning, everybody. I hope you can all hear me. If not, then please let us know in the chats below. In general, you will have the ability to chat here during the presentation, to ask questions. And if you were here 5 minutes ago, Steve and I, we just agreed that we will have a question and answer session at the end of the presentation. In the meantime, my colleague, Jarwan, and I, who's also here, we are going to collect your messages, and if there's questions among them, we are just going to put them mark them as questions, and later on all of your questions will be projected for the presenter to respond to them. So we start this webinar here as a webinar of the Luxembourg Digital Innovation Hub, and as such, I will have a few slides prepared to tell you more about us and about what you can expect from us before we go to the presentation. So the Luxembourg Digital Innovation Hub is a consortium of several members, among which is the LIST, the Lux Innovation, and the Luxembourg House of Cybersecurity. And we are the University of Luxembourg Competence Center, another member of the hub. And we are presenting this webinar today. A little insight into our services you can see here. On the upper right is what we are responsible for as the Competence Center, which is skills and training. And there specifically, we offer skills maturity assessments to companies. We offer tailored training programs to companies based on skills assessment, but also based on the results of other interactions from our partners. And this makes us stand out a little because we have this hybrid structure here where everybody is working together. We offer workshops for training providers and for companies to help match the training offer to the needs of the market. And we also are responsible for awareness sessions on digital training or on offers in digital transformation like this. One second, sorry. One of our services is the training catalog, and we are constantly updating it. The training catalog 2023 had 51 trainings and 8 groups, and the current training catalog already has 84 and 9 groups. We constantly monitor the training offer specifically for industry in Luxembourg, and we offer the developments concerning Industry 4.0, 5.0, and see how to best group trainings as to make them understandable and accessible for a specific need of a company. In general, this is a little overview of our of what we offer, and with a little more detailing to it. The digital skills maturity assessment is the assessment of a company and the employee base. And there you see on the upper left, you see that we ask for the competence have and the competence desired, actually, in certain technologies. We try to understand the perspective of the learners here, of the employees of the company, and we try to adapt our trainings based on the insight we receive. And then we try to offer a tailored training curriculum based on the already existing training offer in Luxembourg. And this is where our interaction with training providers comes in. We help training providers to best match their offers and, if necessary, adapt their offers. And this is a service we do as it's not free of charge, but free without a price tag for you. So without further ado, thank you. And if you have any more inquiries for us, please contact us via email. And here I would like to start with, I would like to pass on to Steve, who is the founder and the CEO of LuxData. And he's going to talk about automating business intelligence today. He's going to present us with a complete workflow for data collection, analysis, and visualization. Yes, we can send a link to the training catalog. Just doing the presentation of Steve now. Hello, are you ready? This went a little faster than you expected. I think he's coming up. Steve, we can see your presentation already. We can't see your video. Hello, Steve. Can you reconnect maybe if it doesn't work? Okay, please everybody have some patience. It seems Steve had issues, even though everything was working fine just a few minutes ago. And in the meantime, we can send you a link for the training catalog.
Okay.
Ah, you're back.
Okay.
We hear you, we see you.
Okay. All good?
Yes, all good.
Wonderful. Good. So let me just, I have another window open here. I'm just going to close this. Okay, good. Good. I think we're live now, correct? Okay, good. Well, listen, Thomas, thank you very much, Thomas, for the nice introduction and for inviting me, and greetings to everyone online. So I'll be speaking to you about business intelligence, and specifically in regards to automating business intelligence, because that is a component which is somewhat important, especially nowadays in the time of real-time information. So a couple of words about myself. I actually have an engineering background in industrial automation. So I worked for quite some years at General Electric. I was involved in industrial automation projects. And so I've always enjoyed automating the automation side of, let's say, technology. Maybe that's also why I kind of slipped into digital transformation projects already quite some years back, doing quite simple things, but just heading into automation. And some 10 years ago, I slipped into data analytics. I got exposed to Tableau Software and also Alteryx. And to be frankly honest, I've enjoyed it so much. I've never, turned back from the years before. And I've truly become passionate about this technology. So anyway, so you'll see quite a few slides here on Tableau and Alteryx, but that doesn't mean that I'm here to sell these products, although they're very good and I love using them. But of course, there are also other solutions out there which are equally as useful to do a certain job. Now, in terms of agenda, I'll give you a quick introduction on business intelligence, and I'll talk about the actual dashboard, which I wanted to present to you as a use case. And then following that, we'll go through each step of a business intelligence, let's say, standard process on collecting data, storing it, and finally visualizing and automating the process. Good. So business intelligence. Let's just go through a couple of slides of theory. And so essentially, business intelligence is transforming data into knowledge, transforming data into insights. There's a lot of different terminology used on the market, but essentially that is what it's about. So I have some raw data, and I want to gain some interesting insights, which gives me kind of intelligence to allow me to make decisions. And of course, the more real time this is, the more valuable this information actually is for me. Now, insights in this example here in this presentation. So it can be used to improve operational efficiency. It can also be used to build preventative maintenance programs for equipment, but it also can be used in customer service and sales and many more. It's important to note that this is not reserved just for high-end enterprises and only certain departments within industries. On the right-hand side on this slide, like in terms of industries, it can be used, of course, in financial services, but also healthcare, public sector, marketing, communication, and also industrial or utilities business. To be honest, business intelligence as such can be used in any type of industry and also in any type of department within these industries, if it is HR, finance, IT, or supply chain, and so on. So that, in essence, is the principle of business intelligence. And I would like to show you a different slide because, the last years, obviously, we've been exposed more to machine learning and AI, and everybody's super excited about predictive analytics. So I thought let's map this on a chart. And we sometimes speak about creating a data-driven organization. And essentially, a data-driven organization is a company, it's an organization which makes decisions based on data. So it's driven by data. And if you look at this axis here, and we start right at the bottom, that is actually what we have in hindsight. That's kind of the information of, let's say, yesterday. So I gathered the data together, I put it into a dashboard, I present it to the board or to whoever is my audience, and I say, well, this is the sales information from last month or last quarter. So that is called descriptive analytics. So it's really conveying the current state of your business or whatever topic you're trying to cover. As you move along this chart, we get over to predictive analytics. So you're actually gaining kind of more direct insight and slight predictions on what's going to happen, let's say, over the next day. So if I know that, for example, we're speaking about open data project here as an idea. So if I know that the population on the 1st of January was, let's say, 650,000, and I know that there's an annual increase by, let's say, 1.7% on an annual basis, then I can kind of predict that in a couple of months I'm going to hit a certain amount of population. And with that, I can start predict that, well, maybe I need more schools, maybe I need further capacities in hospitals, and so on. So that's kind of entering predictive analytics, and that allows you to do some better forecasting. Further up the ramp is called something which is called prescriptive analytics, and that is where we start to develop algorithms and workflows which helps us to identify policies on what to actually do to address the predictive analysis. So that kind of gives you a bit of an idea where we go. Now, it is important to understand and to mention here in this slide is that most businesses are really at the bottom left-hand side because it is an extremely complicated topic of collecting data and converting it into meaningful automation. So the first step is on the left-hand side. Once that is done, and once that is improved, companies can move further up. Needless to say that modern companies which get launched today, they may already have a very strong foundation on IT, like if you look at online banking and so on. So they're already set up, their infrastructure is already set up to be used in a predictive model. So they are able to move up that ramp much faster from day one. Now, the process of business intelligence is roughly kind of follow this workflow. On the left-hand side, we always need to start off with the data. We need to connect to some type of data which helps us to gain insight. So the first step is we connect to data. Once we connect to that data, this can be sensors, it can be sales data, but there's a data collection mechanism somehow going on the left-hand side. And then as we move forward, the next step is usually a data preparation step. So during that step, we connect to the data, we standardize it, we may clean things up, and then we usually store it in an intermediary location, which is often referred to as a data warehouse. You can also call it a data lake or some type of other repository. Once the data sits in the center of this slide here in the storage area, only then is where the fun starts. I can connect my, let's say, data visualization software to this data, and I can create visualizations or report, and then I can further down the road share those insights. It's important to maybe mention in this stage is that in this slide I'm mentioning data visualization, but it's really not necessarily correct. What we're trying to do in business intelligence is we're trying to share insight of data. So data visualization is just the medium to present that information, but it could also be some type of report. It can be electronic actions to turn valves and so on and so on. So I'm kind of skewing things around a bit, but also for this purpose, we're just using this data visualization. But it's important to understand that it can take many different forms of sharing that information at the end. Okay, so let's go through a pet project, or let's say a pilot project, which I kicked off some time ago. Actually, a couple of years ago, obviously I'm very passionate about what I do, but some years ago I looked at statistics in Luxembourg about open data, about unemployment data, the trade of Luxembourg, real estate information, because this is actually open data floating around in the Luxembourg ecosystem. So Statec, which is the Luxembourg Statistics Bureau, they have a whole database with all their information. There's other websites where you can collect data on different areas. So the first projects I developed, they consisted of actually, okay, let's take the data from, let's say, yesterday, and let's try and build a nice visualization. Let's see where it leads. Let's see how interesting this is. And it is true that the more static the information is, the more kind of uninteresting it is. It's more of a, it's like, oh, interesting, but what now? This data is from last year. It's like, it's kind of interesting. It's a nice insight, but it doesn't really give me much value. So at the bottom right there, where I put these blue asterisks, that's kind of a new project I kicked off now in August, September, and I'm trying to take all these different static dashboards which I've built using different data. I'm trying to create a model which allows me to update this on a regular basis, and so that it provides better insight and also more value for the audience. So in a nutshell, what do we have in this dashboard? We have like 10 different data connections. There's about 25 different data sources, and we have in this project we have about 10 different dashboards. And we're not going to go through this now, but we have like population, unemployment, housing, economy, business, and also on trade. So that kind of gives you already a feeling for where we're heading. One important point is what I want to bring across is that it's automated updates, because that is really the key to, first of all, business intelligence as such, but also to have, as a topic of this webinar suggests, is about business intelligence automation. And that is really the key to this. And that brings up a level of complexity and challenges which are fairly significant, and we'll touch base on a couple of those. Now, if I take this back to, let's say, a standard enterprise, as some of you may be working in. So a typical business intelligence project could look something like this. So I may have my sales data and operations in a platform like SAP or Oracle or something else. I may have customer data in Salesforce CRM. I may have Jira to use for my tech support tickets and for my software developments. I may also have machine sensors. Some of you are in industrial engineering, so you're well aware of a Profibus. There's a gazillion different technologies there to actually collect and manage the data from different sensors. And then you may have social media, which comes from Facebook and LinkedIn. And at the end, at the bottom of this slide, I have third-party data providers. These are data providers which may help you to add additional context to your other data, which allows you to do further analysis. So, for example, you may want to know the latest inflation rate. You may want to know the interest rates from the European Central Bank. You may have also a data of the weather system. So usually the local weather organization may share real-time weather information. So these are called third-party providers, which you can surely then plug into your business intelligence project, and you can start to find correlations. Now, all these different connections, they have one thing in common. They all need a data preparation workflow. So here it's called data analysis, but each one of them goes into a different workflow because you need to connect to the data, you need to prepare to the data, you need to prepare the data, and then at the end you need to bring it down into a common, let's say, central data warehouse, so that you can then later on develop your insights and move on to the next step. Now, why is so? Sorry, it's just slipping here. But so this is one, let's say, enterprise level solution. Now, if you look at my pilot project, is actually no different at all. I have population employment is coming from the Statek database. I have the unemployment and housing data is coming from a different database. It's actually hosted on open data. The interest rates, I'm actually plugged into a data set coming from the Luxembourg Central Bank. So it's a different connector. I'm looking at business and trade. That's coming from the Statek, but Statek has a database, but they also have kind of subject or topic related specific Excel files. So they actually treat it totally separately to the first one, for example. And then I have, for example, inflation rate and also key interest rates, which I'm tapping into the European Central Bank database. And here also, each one of them follows a certain workflow. They are stored, and then based on that, I create my insights. And that is why I felt that this project is somewhat relevant to use as a comparison in this project. So essentially, whatever we're showing here can be easily used to help you in your, let's say, enterprise level or professional space. Okay, good. So let's get started. So the first step is to connect to data. Now, connecting to data usually requires a certain software which allows you to, first, you connect to the data source, and then it goes through a bunch of different steps. For example, here I have preparation, cleaning, standardization is super, super important. And then you can do additional analytics. And then at the end of this workflow, you usually output the data. There's a couple of tools there. Obviously, I'm using Alteryx here, but there's also other tools which can do that. Maybe some work better for you than others. So what is important here is that these are repeatable workflows. It's important to understand, again, that for automating business intelligence, things have to be automatable. And that's why this concept here is very different to let's take this scenario. I get an Excel file every Monday, and because it's such a simple manipulation, I'll take the Excel file, I may do a pivot, and then I'll save it again, and then I'll report that. But if I'm on holiday or for whatever other reason, that process has to be automated. Even such a simple thing needs to be automated, and these are the tools which allow you to do that. So they're called repeatable workflows. I'll show you a couple of examples here now in the PowerPoint, and then later on I'll actually show you real time of what this actually looks like. So this one example on the interest rates of the Luxembourgish Central Bank. They do not have a database or an API that share this information, but they have an Excel file. This is what the Excel file looks like, and it's kind of broken up into different chunks. So you have different categories. For example, in the middle is the loans of house purchases. They're broken up into 5 years, 10 years, and 20 years, and so on. Now, this, to a certain extent, we can call unstructured data. And to be honest, for us to then further down the road use this, it gets very complicated. So we need to first put it into a structured format, because at the end of the day, this is the format which we need. We need a clean structure. These are the category, the type of loans, and the date, and also the amounts. I just want to go back. Something I forgot here is that this sheet here gives statistics on the number of loans given by all the banks in Luxembourg. It actually does a summary from 70 different banks in Luxembourg. So it's actually quite a useful information, because it gives us an indication on the housing market. Obviously, when the interest rates go down, the amount of loans which are handed out, and also the volume of the loans go up. So it's actually a very interesting data set. So the workflow to reproduce this actually looks like this. So I'll show it to you. Actually, I'll show it to you right away like that. We'll just jump straight in. So this is now is Alteryx. So maybe just in nutshell, what Alteryx does is that I have a lot of tools up here. So this is a pure ETL tool. It's used, let's say the basics is data preparation, what we're referring to in this project, but you can also do, very more sophisticated spatial analytics, analysis, and predictive analytics, and so on. But for this example here, for example, on the left-hand side, I'm connecting to my Excel file, which is on the server of the central bank. And then all these different steps here, I download the file, I need to do some data preparation, I need to, cut this Excel file, which is kind of grouped up in different categories. I need to decouple it and restructure it in a way that afterwards I can use it. So essentially that's what's happening in all these different blocks. You see icons which look like this is actually a transpose tool, and then you may have a crosstab tool, and these are all tools which help us to rebuild the data and restructure it at the end the way we need it. So if I run this workflow now, I'm just going to run it now. So what it just did is that it actually connected to the server, or not the server, but it downloaded the Excel file, and it took the data and it manipulated the data all the way to the end, and it actually exported the data onto the storage area, which I showed you earlier in one of the slides. Another example I'll show to you is slightly different. So I'll show you three different flavors. This one is, for example, the unemployment data, and that is actually hosted on a totally different platform. It's actually hosted by the open data platform of Luxembourg called data.public.lu. So here, for example, I need a certain API to access the workflow. I need a key because I have a certain account which gives me access to it, and it allows me to download all these files in a CSV format, but I also need to bring in a bit of JSON to interpret the data correctly. And here we have, like, for example, one data connection, but 10 different data sources. So what does that look like? Well, I have different workflows. Again, each one of these data sources needs its own workflow. And in Alteryx, what that then looks like is this here. So this is my first workflow. I download the data. So on the bottom side, you see how the data rolls in. Okay, so it actually went online and it downloaded it to a central location on my computer. And that should be it. So now it's done. So that was done. This actually shows you also how quick these things can be done if they technically work correctly. So now the data is downloaded. And now the next step is that each one of these data sources, if this is the age, the disponibilité d'âge, dispo commune, and so on and so on. So these are all different data sources from this one connection of this topic of unemployment. So if I run this now, I just want to make sure something is off. Okay. Although it's going to take too long. So what this now does is that it connects to each one of these data sets, and it churns out, it goes through different data cleaning and data preparation steps one by one. Takes about 30 seconds. Okay, so that's done now. So this is done. And normally in this last step is that, again, it publishes the data to your intermediary repository. So this is what these workflows look like in real world. And I'll show you one more example, but just here on the screen, because we also have a bit of a, let's say a technology audience here. So this is actually, I'm reading sensor data, which was provided by the, I think, Administration Écologique of Luxembourg. And they actually provide the data in a Python format. And so I have a Python script which collects all this data. It's a gazillion different files, and this data tracks temperature and air quality on I think 6 or 7 different locations in Luxembourg. So yeah, it's a similar concept. I have a workflow which connects to the data. I actually add some value to this data set. So I enhance it by, in this case, I'm adding the latitude and longitude information of each of these sensors, because that will now allow me to plot these sensors onto a map, and I can better visualize the information which is captured by these sensors. So getting back to the initial idea, we're not only talking about sales information or unemployment, it can also be totally industrial related. Okay, so if you just summarize, what we've just done is we've connected on the left-hand side all these different data sources and these different data connections. And for each one of them, we had to create a workflow. And we basically ended up this first step on the storage level. Each one of those workflows exported the data to the storage, and that is the state of the union, let's say, at this stage. Now, the next step is that storage. So where do you store it? Now, this is not a very exciting part of the topic, but it is part of it. So if you go back to the initial process, we need to store the data somewhere in the middle. Now, as for myself, for this example project, I used a Snowflake as a server. Let me just log on the other screen here. Just give me a second. Okay. Okay, so I'm not a database expert, but I connect a lot to different databases. And on the right-hand side, you see a couple of logos, which surely some of you are familiar with. So this specific example, I'm using Snowflake, but it could also be Azure, AWS, and so on, or a standard SQL or MySQL server, whatever suits you best. And this, for example, now is my database in Snowflake. And if I open up my database, this is what it looks like, and I have all my different tables from this project. If I go to I think I need to go in here, schemas, public tables. Here we go. Okay, cool. So these are all my tables for this specific project. Again, for your project, it could look exactly the same thing. And if I look at the interest rates, for example, BCL interest rates, so that got updated just 6 minutes ago, which is actually where I just executed the workflow. So yeah, on this step here, there's not much more to talk about. This is just a simple repository, call it database, call it a data warehouse, whatever you may need in your project, but it is a step which you cannot go by without. Okay, third step is visualizing and sharing the insights. So now that we have connected to the data, and we connected to the data and we've stored it, now we can actually start to create data visualizations or somehow process the data so that we can share it with others. This specific example, I'm using Tableau, but obviously Power BI or Click and many others do the same process. And essentially, what these software tools allow you to do is that you connect to the data and it already breaks down the data correctly into dimensions and measures, and you can start building your dashboard from there. So let me just hop over to Tableau itself. It should be open somewhere here. Okay, let me just hide this message here. So this is, for example, Tableau. So here on the left-hand side, I have all my different data sets. And for example, if I look at ECB inflation, well, I can now, ECB, now what was that? Which one did we have? Banque Centrale, here we go, Banque Centrale interest rates. So here are my different categories from this data set, which I shared to you earlier. And in here now I can start to build my different visualization based on what I need. So this is this type of tools which you then use to create different parts of visualization. And then at the end, you may create a collage, or let's say a dashboard of all these different components. So for example, this is just one sheet, which is the country population, but essentially I'm just using that one sheet, and I can put that together into an overview slide. And I can use, for example, a number of companies, which is a totally different data set or even data source, and I can also bring that into the dashboard. And this at the end is my dashboard, which hopefully gives interesting insight and intelligence for the business to take better decisions. Good. So now the next step is that, so we've created the dashboards. The next step is that, well, we need to share it, okay? Because right now it's just sitting on my computer. Now, there's two types of sharing, if I may add in here. One is the public access. And if I go to, let me just go, in this example with Tableau, for example, there's nothing unusual that, for example, a certain information you may want to share with public access. Nothing wrong with that. Depends again on your business intelligence project. In this example, Tableau has something called Tableau Public, and it's free, so you can actually publish your dashboards here. And actually, here's my air quality project, which I put together some months ago. But it's actually hosted live online, and people can click on it if they want to. However, most of the time reality is that you need to provide restricted access. That means it's just towards your own employees in your organization. So it may need to be hosted in your own environment using a specific server which is provided for that. Here, just a couple of screenshots. This is actually Tableau server, which is where my projects are hosted on. But essentially, here you can provide access to different users. You can create groups of different users, and then most importantly, you can manage permissions and access. Grant access and certain roles within all your projects. So just a snapshot on what happens on that front. But essentially, that is actually how you start to share this information within your organization. So that kind of summarizes the third step of automating this process. So we've connected to the data sources on the left-hand side. We've prepared the data using data preparation, or let's say an ETL tool. We've stored the data in the center with, let's say, standardized format of fields. We've created a data visualization, and at the end of the day, now we're able to share these dashboards and essentially to provide insight to your audience if they are internal or external. So essentially, from a business intelligence point of view, we've actually concluded the project, and yes, and it looks as if we are done. But I have a bit of a bad news. We need to add the automation component to this, and this is not insignificant, because right now my project here actually runs on my computer, correct? Because this is actually my desktop computer, and my workflow also runs on my computer here. So the thing is that once I disconnect all my own software tools, this still needs to run every day at 7 in the morning, because I need my data and the insights to be updated on a, let's say, daily basis. And for other projects, it could be hourly or even every minute. So it has to run in an automated fashion. In order to do that, So this is our current state. So let's call this on-premise development. So I've used my tools to connect to my data source. I've done my ETL, I store it locally, and I developed my dashboard, and I've probably even shared it internally to some colleagues at work. What needs to happen now is that you somehow need to move all this up and replicate this whole process in an area, I call it here cloud, which allows you then to run it even if you are not in the office. And that is absolutely key to creating an automated business intelligence solution, because at the end of the day, what you need is you want to disconnect the computer because it's weekend, or maybe you have a week off, or you're on a different project. And to be honest, we also, in an automation world, we don't want to click enter every day. So it needs to happen in an automated fashion. So once these different steps are uploaded to, let's say, a server environment, you can start to disconnect your system you can disconnect your local system. But don't forget, the online system also has to connect to your data source. So you have to ensure that whatever cloud system you're setting up also has access to these data sources. So you may run into some firewall limitations, you may have some IP access rights, and so on and so on. And so that first step can become quite tricky to make sure that your workflows actually have real-time access to your data sources. And in order to move this on, most software tools have a scheduling function, because if I show now here, back on this slide here, I added a couple of clocks here, as you can see. So each one of these need to be scheduled. So for example, if my sensor data is ready at 5 o'clock in the morning, okay, let's run these workflows, collect the information at, let's say, 5:10, and store the data. And then in the storage area and also the visualization area, depending on your setup, your architecture, you may have to create additional schedulings to make this whole workflow automated. So these tools, so this, for example, Alteryx, in Alteryx Server, it's called Scheduler, and this is just a snapshot. So this is actually what it looks like. So you may have all your different workflows, and there's a certain frequency. You can actually set it up at what time, how often, the frequency, and so on. And what is notable to understand and to be aware of is that companies know how valuable this is. So they will actually usually land up charging you a premium for this function. So you may create your workflows locally, which is great, but once you want to automate, which is the true value of automating the whole business intelligence and adding huge value into the insights which you bring out, it needs to be automated. And companies know how valuable that is, so they will charge you different processing blocks, like how many workflows you want to process. Is it every day, every week? And it can actually become quite expensive if you run it like this. So this is a screenshot of Alteryx Server. I'll show you another screenshot. So another aspect to keep in mind is you may have a forecast, and you may want to manage all these different workflow updates. Because reality is that each business, if you're looking in a big corporation, everybody will want to say is that, well, I want my dashboard at 8 o'clock in the morning, and I want all the data updated. Well, reality is that if everybody says that, then the servers are going to be extremely busy from 6 o'clock till 8 o'clock to try and manage these deadlines. So it's important to keep an eye on it and to adjust the forecast so that, let's say, the usage on the servers and the whole network is better balanced. So this is another aspect. In big organizations, you may have the scheduling manager. So that's all what he does. He looks at the 120 different data sets, and he will analyze and see, well, which data set is taking longer to update. Some of them may take a half an hour to update. So, but in those half an hour, it may be blocking the update from different workflows. So there's a bit of managing around and optimizing that space in terms of scheduling. Another screenshot I thought I threw in. This is what it looks like in Tableau Server. So in Tableau Server, it's actually called extracts. So you can actually replicate your data warehouse on a Tableau Server, and then you can actually automate the refresh of that local data warehouse. There's a number of advantages to do it in such a way, because your data, actually, if I go back to this chart here, your data may be stored here in the middle, which may be database, and you don't necessarily want all your data visualizations to access that database all the time. Otherwise, that database is going to be super busy all the time. It may be sitting in a totally different platform, and you may want to decouple that. So I don't want to make it too complicated here, because we don't have that much time to talk about, but that is another aspect to think about. And in Tableau, it's actually called an extract. So it actually takes a local copy, stores it on Tableau Server, and actually all the dashboards are then connected to this instant of the data. Yes, that's it really what I want to show. I'm just going to show you quickly. I showed you that. I show you a bit of this, the actual dashboard itself, to just give you a flavor on how things like this are built. So if I look at population, for example, so this is the data on the population, which comes from different data sets. A component which we have not talked about in this presentation has been more technical at this stage, but it's about how you present this information, which information is relevant, and what are the best data visualization practices you want to use to convey this information. So that's another area which is not covered here at all. There's specialists in information designers and how to make dashboards, yes, let's say as insightful, but also as attractive as possible, that people like also looking at data. Thomas, I think we're up with time. I just want to show you maybe two different ones.
Yes, but I think you can still put 5 minutes if you want.
Okay, cool. Yeah, I'll just browse through the different ways on presenting data. So this, for example, employment information about the population of Luxembourg. So this is real data coming from Statec, and different ways on how to present the data. Okay, what else can I show you? This, for example, trade. Trade is a fairly complex project, or the data is presented in an Excel file, and each country is a tab. So the workflow to prepare the data and put it into a structured format is actually quite challenging. But it allows us to create, to actually bring it all together. So now I know that the total trade volume is a certain amount. I can also start filtering, well, show me all the countries with a trade volume of at least 10 million. So I'm beginning to shortlist the chart. I can also start filtering on different areas. So if I look at Europe, for example, or maybe not yet. Maybe I quit it here. Yes, here we go. So if I look at, for example, Europe 28. Okay, so now I can start filtering. I'm seeing which is the biggest country, and I'm also seeing which are, for example, which type of industry sectors. Maybe an interesting one is also housing. So housing, no, hold on. Yeah, that's down here. So housing is data coming from Ministère du Logement. So they bring out statistics on the housing market on a quarterly basis. So again, in terms of automation, this pilot project tries to, first of all, automate this process. So that's one thing. But also, it's only as valuable as updated the data is. If the data comes once a year, well, then there's not much to automate. But the goal of this project is to create an incentive also with different administrations to share the information on a more regular basis, because the more up-to-date the information is, the more valuable it becomes, because it provides better insight for the audience. And essentially, when you compare this with your organization, it's actually a very similar concept. So that lets me conclude this project. Thomas, thank you very much. Well, thank you everyone for listening.
Thank you, Steve, for the presentation and for these insights you provided. That was very tangible and interesting, I find. We have a few questions. The first one is a more general question that I want to display for you. Do we get the slides afterwards?
Yeah, sure. I can share those slides. That's no problem.
Okay. So I suggest we share it based on the list of participants that we have on the webinar. We will just you will send it to us and we will share it with you afterwards.
That's fine.
Then we have a question, and everybody is still invited to ask questions now. If you want to speak to Steve directly, I can activate that for you. If you are in a quiet space and you're ready to speak, then we have a more specific question. Do you have a feeling of how much the industry companies in Luxembourg are using these kinds of processes?
Yes, I think that I need to be honest, I don't have that insight. I don't have that data. But surely we can look at some statistics. If you remember the business intelligence slide, if I can show this one here. Yes, exactly. I think, unfortunately, most companies, if at all, are on the bottom left-hand side. As this project shows, it's actually quite an undertaking to actually build a dashboard. Let's just keep it a dashboard for now, because the dashboard is a first scenario on what is the status of my business today. But in order to get there, as we have seen, there's a lot of different steps involved, and I think, unfortunately, most people don't have this type of process in place. So they may have their static reports, maybe comes out once a month, maybe have a couple of people which put the data together manually. But again, I don't have any concrete information. I do know for sure it is also in combination with the size of an organization. I assume that companies greater than 10 person, for example, they have the resources and capacity to actually start building up, let's say, fairly static dashboards, but at least they are up to date on a weekly basis. And then, of course, the smaller the businesses are, maybe the less the resources are. New businesses which start from scratch today, I must say, I myself had a startup 10 years ago, and technology has evolved so fast that if I were to start a business today, I would already develop the infrastructure from bottom up, totally different, which will allow me to do this. So I think I can imagine that probably older businesses struggle to get this transition, this digital transformation into business intelligence, while newer businesses will probably have it already built in from the first day on.
Mm-hmm. And then we have a question from the same person, from Manuel, that connects to the first. And I think your response there is very similar. Here he specified for small and mid-sized companies. So yeah.
Yes. I think that there is a domain expertise, which is I just wanted to slip in parallel to my professional efforts on a daily basis. I launched a data community last year called Data Studio, and the whole idea in this data community is to actually share the knowledge of data analytics also to people which are not necessarily that much related to this information. But I do think, especially in the trades, if you have an expert in a certain field, if that is finance or accounting, or even anything more tangible, like a carpenter or cook and so on, I think it's understandable that most people will not necessarily know this information. They may have heard about it, but chances are high that they may not have the domain expertise. So unfortunately, I think there's definitely room there to bring that up to also small businesses.
Mm-hmm. And here we have a question from Joachim, who is our, by the way, who's one of the, let's say, heads of our project, L-DIH in Luxembourg, from Lux Innovation. And he's asking, do you use Alteryx as your ETL tool? And is this an open source project? And about the license cost?
Yes, hi Joe. I know Joe very well. Greetings. Good morning. Yes, no, Alteryx is not there's unfortunately not an open source tool, and it's actually priced on a fairly premium level, which means it's actually, let's say, on a high end level. Let me just open up that slide I had. I think it was this one here. If you can share the slide.
You can again. Just share over this if you want.
This one here, yes. Where was it? Pay preparation. Hold on. Yes, it was this one here. Yes. I need to share it.
Yeah.
Yeah, there you go. Okay. Yes. So yes, to answer the first question, Alteryx is not free. It's fairly premium, but I've been using it for many years. Again, I'm not here to sell it, but it's an amazing tool. There's hundreds of connectors, and for reading data, there's hundreds of different tools how you can manipulate the data. And then at the end, you can output it to literally endless formats, which you might need. So I'll put my hand in the fire for Alteryx. However, I do know, especially in the SME space, most companies would be hesitant to spend that type of money. So there's other tools out there. Obviously, Tableau also has a tool called Tableau Prep. It's not as powerful, but to do simple ETL work, it works perfectly fine in the Tableau space. I'm not a big user of Microsoft, but Power Query has similar abilities. I came across a different tool called KNIME. It also that actually works in the cloud, and I believe there's also a free version. And as you remember, the repeatable workflows, that's where the money is. So although KNIME may provide an open source version to test and create your developments, but once you move it up to the cloud level and you want to automate this process, that's where the clock starts ticking in terms of your euros. There's a lot of others out there, and unfortunately, that's the only list I have to share.
We have received another question just now from Zain. Do you also offer any hands-on training for automating business intelligence?
Yeah, good question. Thank you. Well, I think there's two things. I actually do give Tableau trainings at the Digital Learning Hub in Esch, Alzette. So you're absolutely welcome to join a Tableau training. So that's purely a Tableau. Now, when it comes to automating business intelligence, I think the next step could probably be using the Data Studio. I may host, these are kind of meetups where I could probably present it. And yes, I guess I could make it also more hands-on. So something to think about. But I'd love to help out and offer this because I think it's an exciting.
Maybe you could share the link to your training offer. But I believe it's also now training catalog if you want to have a look there.
Yes, sure. And also, I think the schedule is coming out for next year. So I'll be happy to share that.
Cool. Now, someone is still typing, but for me, a personal, or let's say a question that's more related to my field comes up here. Have you ever been approached by a person in research to integrate this approach of a data warehouse and to integrate business intelligence approaches onto generating data for research? Because that's something that that comes to mind now, especially when when there's multidimensional data available, that would allow for many different research instruments to be applied afterwards.
Yes. Now, me personally not, but I do know of quite a few projects in the UK. And to be quite frank to you, Alteryx or these type of tools usually find more space in the research area, because that's really where the nitty gritty is. So if you want to do, for example, machine learning on scans or deep statistics, then a tool like Alteryx is definitely better suited. You know, in statistics, I'm not a statistician, but for example, R programming is used a lot.
Yes.
And the beauty of these type of tools is that it allows you to create workflows, but they are visually represented. And if I change my responsibilities, I can actually hand that over to somebody else. So as you can see in these slides here, there's very little code. Of course, it can get much more complicated, especially if you go to deep analytics. But Tableau Alteryx has done a lot to repackage a lot of the techniques inside tools. Nevertheless, you can also bring in Python in here and R or whatever, C# and so on.
I think this would be very useful if you have a team of people that are not specifically statisticians or specialists in data analysis. So that's visualizing these workflows and making them more comprehensive, even if you have no coding experience. There is a comment rather by that he writes synthetic data, mostly .ai. I'm not sure what that relates to at the moment, or if that's another comment on.
What is the specific question?
I think it's not a question. It's just a mentioning of synthetic data, and then mostly
yes.
.ai.
Yes, synthetic data. Now, I'm not quite sure how to interpret this question, but yes, there's synthetic data. Also, for example, in Luxembourg at LMDS provides synthetic data. And essentially, synthetic data is artificially generated information, but it's anonymized and it represents a certain reality, which I think is great to, especially in terms of research. You can actually use that data without any privacy issues. Talking about AI, now I'm not sure if that answered the question, but yes, there is a lot of synthetic data out there which you can use to create some use cases. In terms of AI, maybe just to bracket open, what I've shown today is actually quite manual. I mean, you know, you're seeing these workflows, one I'm just showing here on the screen, and you think like, wow, this guy's building all this manually. Well, that's unfortunately the reality we still live in. I have tested ChatGPT Pro or Plus, whatever it's called. And yes, AI is helping us tremendously in a data preparation stage. And it will help us move fast in certain stages within this process. But there will at least for the time being, there will always still be needed validation checks, reality checks, like, is this data correct? Is something missing? Is it interpreted correctly? And so on. So yes, AI will also, these platforms like Snowflake and Azure and so on, they all have started to build in co-pilots into their platforms, and it helps us to save time in certain parts of that process.
Not to take so much time of the participants here,
Sure.
I think this is a question that relates to your mentioning of Tableau. Can Power BI also be used as an alternative?
For sure, in data visualization and data preparation, absolutely, yes. Again, I'm trying to put an unbiased hat on here, but yes, I mean, Power BI is obviously part of the Microsoft platform of Data Fabric and so on. Maybe one key component to understand is that Tableau and Alteryx, the reason why they are quite popular is because they are standalone software suppliers and also standalone solutions. which offer a number of advantages because you're completely disconnected from the Microsoft framework. But if you are more married to the Microsoft framework and you're using Azure anyway, then probably Power BI is more of a practical solution. I think what I would do, to be honest, I would do some use case, some case studies. I'll do some pilot projects like, okay, let's test 3 different providers or 3 different technical solutions and see which one works best for you.
Mm-hmm. There's a little comment here on you can use or install an AI agent locally doing data collection, cleaning based on rules defined, and then sending data to another AI agent to display on a dashboard. Yes, personally, I've been aware of this approach. Thank you for the comment. But finding the tools that work best here is often a challenge. Also best for the task. But yeah, there's surely more in the future for that.
No, absolutely. And I mean, we're all in technology, and you know, we've all tested AI, and for sure it starts to help us in certain parts. So for sure, certain parts of the process are going to be automated. Yes. So, but I would take all these things with caution. I think if these rules, as this gentleman mentions, if these rules are very clearly defined, and the data you're connecting to is always consistently the same, then for sure these things will work. It starts to, one tends to get hiccups when the data source has changed for whatever reason. Maybe a new router was installed or some different data collection device, and suddenly the date format is different. And these issues might need to be flagged. So if there's like a data validation steps involved, I think that'd be great. I think it's definitely worth testing and looking into.
Then the person also commented that they have local companies in Luxembourg that are delivering this type of service already.
Is that a question or a statement?
That's more like a statement, yeah.
Yeah,
more
okay.
like
Yeah.
an add-on
No,
statement.
for sure. Yeah. I don't think I'm the only person who does this. So it's not a breaking technology what I'm presenting here. Well, maybe it is. I hope so.
No, it's always what you do with it and how it fits the specific need. Yeah. So if there are no more questions, then I thank you again for your presentation and these interesting examples that you also gave us here. I think that was very. There's the link to your next course at the DLH on Tableau Analytics.
Yes, I think that is the old link, but if you click on, yes, I'm not, but yeah, I think you may need to browse a bit to find the right one. I'm not exactly sure where to find the latest. This one was back in June and July.
This is probably what we have on our catalog as well. So it would be useful if you find a current link. But in the meantime, I will stop the recording. Thank you for your participation, everyone, and I hope that it has given you some interesting insight and that you found what you were looking for when you came here. So thanks a lot and have a nice day, everyone.